Welcome to the only podcast about made-up dragons stealing made-up ideas from made-up fantasy role players. I'm Andrew Hornbeck.
And I'm Foster Grant. Today we're delving into the depths of the Dragon's Lair to find lost treasures submitted by you, the listener.
Shh! He's right there. Today, on our very first episode, we're discussing where it all starts, the character. Specifically, how to make a good character. We're also going to be heading over to Reddit to answer some of your questions.
Grab your potions of healing. This is the Dragon's Horde. Andrew.
Yeah, what's up?
A wise old man has informed me of a cave nearby that might have some great role-playing questions.
Well, you know what goes with caves. Dragons and great questions. I'll set up the scenario for you and the listener. Listener, if you want to go ahead, get out your D20s. Grab your mead and get ready for an audio adventure like you've never heard before. Okay, so you're in a field. You're in this beautiful field. There's a babbling brook. And by beautiful field, I mean a scorched wastscape.
My favorite.
Yeah, your favorite wastscape, the scorched ones. There's charred bones of mighty behemoths piled high as houses. But you see off in the distance, you can see the dungeon, the cave, that old man told you about.
I mount my trusty steed Butternut.
Butternut, having previously lost 2 of his legs, carries himself, drags his hindquarters slowly through the ashes and bones.
I'm gonna buy him a cart. We're gonna put his right on.
What are you gonna buy him? Who's gonna be selling you his cart in his scorched wastscape?
You're right. We trudge on.
I'll say you fashion a makeshift cart out of the rib cage of a mammoth, and you kind of pull it like a bobsled, and it's just enough to kind of right. What was the horse's name? Butternut. Yeah, so Butternut just kind of has her hindquarters resting on this mammoth rib cage. The closer you get to this cave, you notice 2 things. You notice that it smells like rotting flesh and burnt hair. But you also notice that inside you is this aching desire to answer questions from Reddit.
I mean, as always, from my youth, finding questions on Reddit and doing the best I can to answer them with whatever knowledge I may possess, seeking the advice of estranged wise men.
However small amount of knowledge you have on it. You get closer. The first thing you notice when you're at the mouth of this cave is a chest in front of you, about the size, like maybe like waist high. Doesn't look like it's locked. It's like you can get right into it.
I gracefully dismount Butternut.
You gracefully and Butternut gracefully tumbles down the hillside, having lost like her counterbalance of you being on her back, and she's impaled by several like broken femurs of larger animal bones.
Butternut the Third, you died well.
Rest in peace, Butternut. Wait, what a way to start a podcast. You open up that chest, and you see that there's a bound up linen package.
Sensing the gravity of this situation that I'm in, I just rip it out and open it up.
Just take it open. No, it is the first player kill that it just explodes. There's a bomb. So you goofed up there, buddy. No. You take it, pop it out. You realize it's the first topic of our first episode.
Oh my gosh.
Aren't you excited?
My training, my years of want and patience has paid off.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All of those times you talk to old strangers, just hoping it would wind up leading you to this very package.
I knew when I met this man in the bar, he was
one in a million.
He was one in a million.
One
man.
in a million.
2 glass eyes.
Because you have talked to a million different old men with glass eyes.
I just always approach them.
Hey, buddy, come to my cave. I got some questions for you.
Hey, man, I never turn down an opportunity.
To what? To avoid the explicit tag, you open up. you open up the parcel. You realize it's just a single piece of parchment that says, "Hey Foster, how's it going? I'm the guy with the glass eye, and I really want to know what makes a good character."
Man,
What makes a good
this man
other than
is
having
the
2
answer
glass eyes
of his lifetime. Oh boy, he doesn't know what hit him. All right, making characters.
eyes.
What makes a great character? Well, when it comes to making a character, you got to find something that you're going to enjoy playing. You don't want to play a character that halfway through a campaign or even like a quarter way through a campaign you're like, no, I'm not enjoying this.
I mean, even halfway through a session.
Right.
Like that I've seen that happen before as a DM. There's been a couple times, especially with newer players, they will get around the table, they'll get excited, and then they'll start picking stuff that they think is useful.
Mm-hmm.
Big air quotes around useful. And then they wind up just absolutely hating the character that they made because they have no type of like relationship to it at all. So just because maybe a grappling hook is quote unquote more useful than a like bouquet of flowers in a lot of different circumstances, that's not necessarily true in a fantasy world.
Right.
That bouquet of flowers may be exactly what you need to finish a quest or to finish a quest line.
There's so many options out there, and there's you got different classes like wizard, paladin, fighter, monks, all these different things. You can kind of get lost, and I think going in, you just need to have a semblance of what it is you want to do, because I think you're going to be able to find that. So if you want to kind of play stealthy, play in the foreground or the background, you're going to be able to find something like that, like a monk or like a ninja or rogue, definitely rogue, and stuff like that. Also, just making a backstory also helps a lot, just to attach you to a character.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna back to what you're saying. Like I forget this all the time. Is that new players, like I forget whenever I first started playing role playing games. I'm familiar with a bunch of different role playing systems, but I'm most familiar and I like the most. I like the Pathfinder system, as you know. But I forget that initial fear, like that there's you have your core rule book that you could build a house out of. You could beat a man to death with it, and then your DM throws you the book and it's like, well, make something, my child. Like go forth and play board games. Yeah. I always forget whenever I have new players, and I say, oh, you can just be, you could be a paladin, because you have a strong sense of justice, and they give you that doughy-eyed, like, dumbstruck stare, and they're like,
what's a paladin?
Yeah, what's a paladin? You say you get a broadsword, and they're like, a sword, and then you see their brain like leaking out of their ear. No, that's definitely that's a great point. I feel like more DMs, myself included, need to be reminded that playing a role-playing game in general can be daunting, but playing it for the first time it's terrifying.
Definitely. Being a new player myself, having just been in my first campaign back in August, I didn't know exactly what I wanted going in to creating the character, and I'm scrolling through all these classes, and I'm just like, man, I'm just going to find the first thing that sounds cool. And I stumbled across ninja. I was like, man, ninjas, they're cool. I want to be a ninja. I want to be stealthing through, just throwing shurikens. That's what I want to be. And so just doing that, and then having obviously the help from other players, and you as a DM just building a character, giving me information on, well, if this is what you want to do, these are the things you need. Or if this is how you want to play it, this is what. If I wanted to be like an upfront, like fighty ninja, then obviously I would have gone for less like stealthy things and maybe boosted more.
And that's interesting too, because I have found that players fall into one of two camps. You're the player that wants to kind of like keep it safe, and whenever you throw them a bunch of options, even if they're unfamiliar with role-playing games, the first thing they pick up is stuff they already know. So they've seen something like Lord of the Rings, or they're familiar with like knights or anything in that sort of genre, and they'll pick a fighter. They'll pick a rogue. They'll pick like a ranger or something, because those are, people say they're the vanilla classes, but they're the classes that a lot of publishers decide to put in first, because they're tried and true, because people gravitate towards that sort of class as like an archetype. I found that very interesting. Than your initial reaction, though, which is the other camp that people fall into, is they go ham online and all the resources that they have, and they start, I want to be a half dragonkin, like orc monk with background, and my father was a goose wizard or something. He was smithing up gooses all day with his magical prowess, but then they make a really interesting character out of that, even though sometimes as a DM and your players throw big ideas at you, you smile and nod, but you are half expecting it to be like, they're gonna realize that that's a dumb idea, which is not the case with your ninja. Just for the listener's sake, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably at least familiar with role-playing games. But if you're not, imagine the average person.
5'8".
Yeah, just average height, average weight. Foster's character, he's a ninja, so he's already a little bit, you'd expect him to be a little bit more lithe, a little bit more agile. You would not expect him to run 50 miles per hour, which is what this character can do, and
he's the best.
He's the fastest. So the average person in a game like Pathfinder, their movement speed is they move. The average is like 30 feet, 30 feet and around. Scott, that's your character's name, Foster. Foster, do you care to tell the audience how many feet Scott can move in a round?
Oh, it's just a mod is 300.
300
per second.
It's every time we have like a chase, or we need someone to get away. Scott, I need to get out of here. I'm gonna pick up some people and I'm gonna run out of here. Well, you're still within range of so and so.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. I ran 300 feet away in 6 seconds.
So even with carrying 5 people, Scott can move like 150 feet.
Yeah. Which it doesn't help that I didn't anticipate you being able to do that, and I gave you more like mobility-based items.
Right.
Which, but I mean, tangent. This is our first tangent we got off on. It's a momentous occasion. The idea of making a character that's cool and making that a priority more so than making a character that is, again, big air quotes, useful,
right,
is, from a DM's perspective, I would say I feel like that's the most important thing to tell a player. Because, do we want to gripe about areas?
For like,
because the areas effect.
Areas plague.
Hold that thought. If we ever mention the name Arius, you can just go ahead and associate we're meaning that in a negative context.
Oh, you really Aries this one.
He is the embodiment of what a player should not do with a character. Anyways,
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. You wanna make a character that you're gonna love playing, and like Andrew was saying, with usefulness versus creativity, be as creative as you can be, because you want to just really enjoy it. Like with making my ninja, I was like, I have all these options. I want to make him ridiculously fast. Just because, to me, that's hilarious, and I enjoy making him angered at the fact that I can just go grab something and be back.
And the thing is, with your speed, too, is it is not always the most useful thing,
right.
Especially for the party. For the party, a lot of times that means, for them, is we're going to have one less party member because he's going to be 300 feet away and there's nothing we can do. We've been playing our campaign, your first campaign, for a while now. But, I mean, we have 4 hours to 6 hour sessions. Sometimes, I mean, I think we've gone longer a couple times, but that's our average. It's like,
right.
like maybe 5 hours. You have to sit and be that thing for 5 hours, and if you hate it, or if you're not even just hate it, if you're not enjoying it every minute of gameplay, right. there's no point in playing.
Yeah, you're not going to be there. You're gonna make the experience bad. You're gonna leave this as a bad taste in your mouth, or maybe you don't want to come back. Like, come back to the role playing system or the setup that role playing provides. So definitely, and also as a DM, you have to love seeing the ridiculous things characters can come up with. Just the mashups that could happen, like. You don't have to, and you won't always. You do have to have sort of a. It's a special type of person that can balance control and freedom. And we're gonna do an episode on that. We'll do an episode on like how to. I know this is episode 1, but maybe we'll do like a series on like how to be a better DM or something like that. I know that may not be your area of expertise, but if I can say anything from my years of experience, normally your players, like the critiques that your players give, that's the most valuable information you can get. More so than, you can read all the books, you can look up all the internet articles, you can reach out to all the different communities, but your players are going to be the people that you need to be responding to the most. You're not going to find a cookie cutter player out there who's going to do the same thing or want to do the same thing every time. They're going to mix it up, and you have to adjust. You have to make the experience enjoyable for them. As much as a DM is a storyteller, they're wanting to immerse the characters in the story. Doing a good job of that is just taking feedback and manipulating or adjusting your story to the players you're with. Yeah, very well put. That's very well put there, Foster. For someone who hasn't DM'd, those are words to live by. If any of you are thinking about getting another tattoo and you have a lot of extra space on your body, like your back, there you go. Right, quote me.
Right there. You can quote. Just a helpful little reminder. So I think we've established a good character is really subjective.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily. There's no one best character. There are bad characters. You can make an empirically bad character, and it's the character that you don't like. It doesn't matter if. Honestly, it doesn't even really matter if the other players don't like your character. It's as long as you do, yeah. And we have a special house rule that I've always played with. I don't, unless all the players are evil, I don't allow evil aligned characters.
Right.
Because that's you're asking for trouble. Depending on the group. There can be a lot of tension that comes with that. But even with that, I've seen groups of all evilly aligned players, which you would think would be a chance for them to, they can let their hair down and they can just have like wanton destruction and do whatever they want. They wind up not liking it as much because when you can do everything, it feels like you're not really doing anything. So putting constraints on yourself, and a lot of times those are creative constraints, like, well, I'm a ninja and I want to run real fast, and then basing basically your whole class around like your whole like play session about like how can I be really agile, how can I like really own up to this character. That ends up being some of the most rewarding gameplay that I see, at least.
And I think one thing for newer players out there, or when you first make your character, you can look ahead to level 8, level 12, and see like, oh, my character is going to be great, and then you start and you're level 1, and you kind of lose interest because you're like, man, my character's not as cool as I thought it'd be.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the growing pains of role-playing games.
Oh, yeah.
And just learning to say, hey, he's going to be great. Let me figure out little tricks I can do here and there to improve it. But you can't go in expecting your character to come in and slay a dragon. It's going to be coming in and it's going to be, dying to toads. Like,
yeah. That's whenever I always remind my players this whenever they first come in. If we start at level 1, you are a novice adventurer. You are not skilled. Even in your class, you're not skilled at that. You are about as close to average Joe as you can get. You may have, if you're a sorcerer, you may have some innate magical abilities. If you're a fighter, you may have some leaning towards being better at melee combat. Yeah, weapons fighting. But you're not. That doesn't mean you're good at it. You're not necessarily good at it. And players get very discouraged.
Right.
But if you have a creative player, you should already in your brain somewhere have a trajectory, because all role playing is telling a story. So if you're not telling a story that's dynamic and that's changing even from character to character, there's really no point in telling that story at all. That's why so players start off at level 1 like, well, I'm weak, and I hear Magic users say this the most, because Magic users, really anyone can swing a sword and stuff like that, but Magic users, they want to use their spells. Like, I can cast my cantrips, and then I can cast a level 1 spell, and I can only open a door with that spell. So you have a professional door opener, and that's all they feel like their utility is. But that winds up being really, if you have a savvy DM, that sort of natural inclination to open up doors may end up playing an important part in the story. You just don't know. That's another thing I always tell my players whenever they're making new characters is don't worry about details like that. Let your DM worry about making you useful. Let them make that character function within this environment, which is, honestly, it takes a lot of trust, because in a lot of conventional board games that people are familiar with, you don't really, you're out to win. And a lot of times role playing is not a win-lose game. Again, it's kind of this dynamic storytelling.
Yeah, and definitely having characters that aren't great at the beginning definitely drives, I think, the role-playing aspect, and pushing characters to want to work together and not be like, my character's awesome, I can do this myself. It's, I have to have my healer and my door opener in order to get into fight,
So many times, as a because in the DM, a lot of times you sit back and you watch things that you would correct, but telling people to correct them isn't necessarily the best way for those things to get corrected. So I see one player is kind of showboaty, and they always want the limelight. They want to be the hero of the story. And instead of saying, hey, stop that, as the DM, I may turn that into an actual, a story plot, saying so they're kind of haughty. They want the limelight. They want the show, especially new players. You have a new person. They make a knight. They make the knight in shining armor kind of archetype. They want to be the hero. They're lawful good. They want to run out there. They want to be a paladin, but they don't want to be religious. They just want to swing a sword, and they want to kill stuff, and they want to slay evil. Instead of saying, hey, let's slow down and let's let the other players kind of do their thing. Instead of doing that, cripple them in some way. Turn that pride into a vice. So have some sort of affliction, or turn that into, they have this mission. They're gonna go out and they're gonna slay so and so. They have to do that because it burned down their village. So a mad wizard, and they gotta go after that. And they may not say this in their backstory. Well, that's why I'm prideful, is because, I have to basically pump myself up anytime I go into this fight, because I'm scarred that this thing, and they may not say that in their backstory, but the DM can subtly he can introduce that.
Right.
So if there's an evil wizard that burned down his village, we'll maybe introduce another another kind of not as powerful, but another evil wizard, and flesh that out and start maybe that new wizard knows the big guy, and he's like, oh, we burnt down their village, and we don't care. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's a storyline. Mm-hmm. You turn a negative aspect into something that not just that player can enjoy, but the whole party can kind of get behind, and they can it can turn into a uniting force, not just something that one player solely enjoys.
Right.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Just
make a good character.
Make a good character. Just be creative. Do something you like. I know it sounds really simple. I know it sounds kind of like reductionism. But when you're going to make a new character, at the heart and soul of it is you. So
if you want to make a gnome barbarian, you do it.
Yeah. Make a gnome barbarian, and make him like, he can be a gnome, but make him like 7 feet tall. And gnomes aren't 7 feet tall, but you can. So do something that you think is cool, something that you feel like is original, something that if you were to meet this person, you would want to sit down with them for however long your sessions are, or you'd want to watch like a movie of this character do stuff. That's the appeal. That's the heart and soul of the game. Is the player, not even the DM. It's the player. So this game is focused around you. That might as well be rule 0. Is have fun, be cool. That's it. Start rolling your dice, find your group, start playing your games. Hey, do you want to answer some questions from Reddit?
Well, there's some Reddit questions in this cave.
There's some Reddit questions in this cave, so we're gonna need to find them first.
But I didn't die for nothing.
You pull out your trusty trusty compass as you're in the cave. You kind of fold up our first topic of the day. Save that away just in case someone else needs to know how to be a good player, how to be a good character. You may end up using that. Yeah. You may need to use it for kindling too, in case it's bad advice.
That's true. Trusty compass. You get your compass, but this was made by a blind man.
Yeah, by that same blind man, and it actually looks pretty good for a guy that can't see. This compass, that it has magical properties, and it's going to point you to the nearest Reddit question. So
it looks like it's deeper in this cave.
It is deeper in this cave. So you travel deep into the cave, and you can hear the rumblings of this foul beast that hoarded away all these questions for himself and doesn't want anyone to hear about them. But you notice something very strange about your compass as you're trompsing over a pile of bones. It starts to spin just wildly in circles, and you realize you're standing right on top of the first Reddit question.
What a compass!
What a compass!
Every time.
What's our first question, Foster?
Right here, coming from 8:05 prime time.
Get it.
Hello, this is my first time playing a wizard, and I have just leveled up to level 2. I need to pick a school of magic, and I was thinking evocation and fireballs, but wanted to know what other things and schools are good to pick.
That's the bread and butter of a wizard, is picking out your school of magic. And in D&D and in Pathfinder, there's both. You can pick a specific school, so you have like evocation, conjuration, you have abjuration, you have alteration, you have all these different schools, but then there's also a universal school which kind of encompasses all of those, and that's the universal school is good for. I want to say that it's good for people who can't make up their mind, and that's not a bad thing because it leaves you with options open. I'd really highly recommend, though. What was it? Who's this? Is this
8:05 prime time?
I'd really recommend that 8:05 prime time. You've already given your answer. He says he wants to do evocation, which has a lot to do with your pulling magics from extraplanar sources, like an extraplanar well, and he mentions fireball specifically. So you're basically you're channeling from the fire plane, and you're bringing that into the material plane. And that's sort of the basics of evocation. And you've already answered your question, Primetime. If you say you're thinking evocation, do that, and then maybe that doesn't wind up being something that you're huge into. Maybe talk to your team about like homebrewing something to where you can like pick and choose from maybe some different ones until you fine tuning. Do some fine tuning with your DM. There's also that's I feel like that's the whole reason why like rods and staves and scrolls were made, so that a wizard that just does evocation may have a scroll of like cure moderate wounds or something like that. So, my advice to Primetime is you already answered your question. You don't need us. So do some evocation magic, Primetime. That sounds good to me. Foster, you're rummaging through some bones, those same bones, and you realize it's actually the next Reddit question. It was two conjoined twins with the first Reddit question. This one's for you, buddy. I got a Reddit question by Ceosis, and they say, if a creature swallows another creature, and the outer creature is transported magically via plane shift or some other means, does the indigested, they spelled ingested wrong, does the indigested creature come along? Do they make a save to avoid it? Does the swallower vomit up the creature and then teleport? Does the spell fizzle? I can't find any rules on this subject.
Well, this sounds like a, very specific, like, this happened.
This is
like, what do we do?
Yeah.
It's not, a broad question like this happens, every other session.
This is maybe like a once in a campaign. Yeah. And like, I don't know, maybe your DM has like a weird fetish. So as a player, what do you feel like it would be the right call for the DM to make on that one?
As a player, I would rather not be teleported to somewhere, but I got swallowed by a frog. I failed my reflex save.
They mention that. They say that, and they say, "Is there a save to get out of that?" And it sounds like you already made your save and you failed that, and you got swallowed.
Consequences are consequences.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm teleported. I'm transported. I'm wherever this guy is, I'm with it. Because I know coming from a player, a lot of spells such as like invisibility. If you're touching something like that, you're invisible too. It's all part of being like in contact with where the magic is coming from. So if you're inside of a creature while it teleports, poof.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. I mean, that'd be like asking, well, if I teleport, do all my guts go with me too?
Right.
And I would say in most cases, that's a 10-4, good buddy. You're still gonna have your. Maybe you may not. I think that's up to your DM for like their discretion to teleport like your skin, but not the rest of you.
But not the first.
That's where his legs went. He got teleported, but not the back legs. Not his legs.
Gotta read the fine print.
Yeah. Gotta read the fine print. Anytime you're casting a spell, we'll do another segment on, getting a good lawyer before you cast a spell. You want to make sure they're reading stuff ahead of time.
Get it notarized.
You gotta get a notary. The last thing you want is to be casting, cause fear, and then fine print is actually a B, cause bear. Now you got a bear on your hands. You don't want to don't want to deal with a bear. You just want to be afraid.
You're trying to scare your enemies, and all you're doing is creating more adversaries for yourself.
Yeah. Classic case. Sinosi says, "Can I make a save to avoid it?" I would say, I think our ruling is you've already made a save and you goofed up.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, Sinosi. I'm sorry you got swallowed by something.
You've been teleported.
Yeah.
Welcome
I hope
to
you get
your
teleported
life.
somewhere nice, though.
Yeah, happy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe somewhere
wild
where
field of scorched earth.
Yeah. Maybe somewhere where things aren't trying to swallow you so much. Next Reddit question.
Well, where's it at? I gotta find it.
It's right across that bridge. Don't you see it? Don't you see that rickety bridge over that? Over that that fissure.
Oh.
That reeking fissure.
I do now.
Yeah, I bet you do, because you also see carnivorous bats hanging above that rickety bridge. You're going to need to do something. I'm going to need you to roll initiative without your dice. Because you didn't bring them. That's rule 0, folks, is bring your dice.
Don't be a scrub. Bring your dice.
Don't be a scrub.
I got a 13.
Okay.
So.
That's not going to be nearly enough.
Oh, man. They get to go first?
Yeah, you're dead now. That's the second time we killed you in this episode. No, see, you rolled a 13 on your reflex save. You get out of the way. These bats, they dart off. And you have just a couple seconds to get across this bridge before these bats are going to get...
You know what I'm doing?
They're going to get you.
I am thinking of Butternut the Third.
I thought that was it.
And her death is motivating me to finish my quest.
Yeah.
It is. And I do it. I get across.
You hear a soft whinny. In the back of your mind, you remember all the times you and Butternut spent together. With all the speed of a 2-legged Shetland pony, you dart across that rickety bridge.
It's actually a lot slower than you think.
Yeah, it's really slow, actually. And the bats catch up with you. They're right on your tail. They're actually not wanting to attack you. They're just wanting to give you this next Reddit question.
What useful guys.
These are
some great guys.
I don't know why people always assume that carnivorous bats are going to be bad things.
Stereotypes, man.
Stereotypes. What do those bats bring you?
They brought me a pristine piece of parchment.
Oh my.
This has been kept.
In this scorched cave.
It's been kept so well.
Oh, yeah, it's in a glass bottle. You pop it open. It's pressurized. I don't know how they did that, but they did.
Sparrowhawk92 asks, are there any rules that specifically mention pulling someone off of their mount? I know that the ride skill has a specific section for making a check to stay on your saddle when you take damage, but I'm looking for someone actively trying to pull someone off of their mount. Would a trip attempt against the rider be appropriate?
Oh.
I'm going to walk up to you on your mount.
Yes.
And use my feet.
Stick out your leg.
And clothesline you. I'm going to fly. I'm going to jump out of a tree.
Yeah.
Make a fly check.
Do it.
Get acrobatics check in there, too. Why not? And I'm just going to trip you.
Do an appraise check. Balance your check. And then trip them with your leg. I would say... Why do you want to trip a horse so bad?
I got 2 legs.
Okay, go on. There we go. I would say you wouldn't... I think the wording is a little off on this question as far as... You would probably wind up rolling the same thing, so you'd roll like a combat maneuver.
Right.
I wouldn't call it a trip, but if you're rolling the same, like it's the same number.
More of a tackle? Like you want to tackle?
Yeah, because you're not tripping the rider, you're tripping their mount, and there are some items that are for that. They can hook around legs. There's some specific spears and axes and stuff. Even a couple swords that are meant for tripping creatures. But as far as tripping the rider, I'm pretty sure that check is going to, unless you're trying to get the rider off of that mount. I'm pretty sure that you roll a combat maneuver to bump the rider off. But I think if you're actually trying to incapacitate or like make the mount go prone, that's going to be against the mount's like their stats, not against the rider, unless there's some weird like handle animal like special condition that may apply to that.
I mean, you never know when it would be useful to trip them out. I mean,
yeah, and that's especially in like a fantasy genre. You have to think that's not mounts encompass so much more than just horses and stuff. You may wind up going against like goblins riding on the back of giant scorpions or something, and it's going to be really hard to trip something that has like 10 legs. Yeah. So,
I mean, which legs do you go for? Which legs would be best when tripping a scorpion?
Are you asking that question, or is that like... we're going to bring that out to you, listeners. What legs would be the best to trip on a scorpion?
The front 4 or the back 4?
You can call us on our hotline, 1-800-SCORPIONTRIPPERS.com /. That's not a phone number because I just said .com.
Find us on our website at trippingscorpions.gov. This is a government sponsored.
It is owned by Russia. The Russian tripping experiments of '93. My verdict is you can trip a mount, but you're going to be going up against the mount's stats.
Right.
You can't really trip something that's not walking, so you couldn't trip the Mountie.
Right. Because it's
It's
riding.
riding.
They got foot in the stirrups, and also when you're sticking your leg out in front of a horse. There's some damage that might be done there. So you might want to watch for that.
Yeah, I probably if that situation ever did arise and you're not using some type of tool, I just don't think that you can vaudeville throw a banana in front of a horse and just have it slip and fall the same as you can't just hike your leg out there and expect the horse to just okay.
We're falling.
Well, there's a leg now. There's nothing I can do about it. Me, the 7.5 foot high horse.
Right.
They didn't say horse though. They did say mount.
So
what if that mount is just like a stilts? Just an animated pair of stilts.
I would say you could trip an animated
I
pair
would
of
say
stilts.
that. Okay, so is that our verdict?
That's our verdict.
Okay, so you can't trip a horse, but you can trip a pair of magical animated stilts. Agreed?
Agreed.
Good. Okay, I'm glad we're helping people like this. Well, after giving those bats that expert advice, they go off and you see them start harassing a still walker, and you feel bolstered. You're gonna get a +2 to your confidence checks, because you gave some really awesome advice there. So you're already across the rickety bridge, and you see it in front of you. You see this massive scaled winged beast on a pile of comments, on a pile of questions, on a pile of user-submitted stories. But you know that you have only enough time to snatch one of those before that dragon is going to wake up and you're going to wind up just like Butternut, which is probably not alive anymore. Impaled by bones.
2 legs. I'm already there. I already have 2 legs.
Oh yeah, you do. Good work. You got a leg up on Butternut.
With also 1 foot in the grave.
Yep, that's true. You see that you only have time for one. Right. Do you choose that one or this one? That one? I'm
obviously going with this one. Right there.
Right
under
there.
the left wing.
Yeah.
His breathing is pretty loud there, so I'm guessing I could have some kind of an advantage to my stealth.
Yeah.
I'm going.
You wait for your opportune moment. He kind of moves up his wing a little bit, and you see...
Get in my trusty sundial.
Your trusty sundial. You see it's 12:30. This is prime time for taking stuff from a dragon. You snatch one of the questions and hold it aloft above you. A choir of angelic beings comes down, and before they awake the dragon, you see that it's a question submitted by More YJP. And More YJP asks, could you use a sane timer in a role-playing game to add stress?
Oh, man.
Oh, man, is that all you said? The dragon scorches you and you're dead. That's number 3.
Man, I'm stressed.
Make a new character. Just thinking about it.
Just thinking about adding a timer. I guess it depends on what the timer is used for. Is it, short spurts to try and get characters' turns to be a little quicker? During initiative type? Because obviously, I'm guessing most systems use a 6-second turn. You got enough time to say something, to move, attack, but it's quick. It's not, I have all day to, plan out my move, talk to my, fellow players. That would obviously add stress to a situation because, you don't have, an exuberant amount of time to use. Also, I guess maybe you could do, say, for maybe a DM's this encounter is going to be quick before maybe I make the the villain or the beast, disappear or something like that. Like, it's not going to be, this beast isn't going to be killed right away. It's going to be disappearing. So maybe he has his own personal timer back here. I guess that'd be more for him than the players. But you can also just, put a timer on the table and not tell them what it's for. And that might just...
Yeah. What would you say... Cause the question's a little vague. What would you say would be a no-no situation to use a timer in? Like, when would you say... What would be, annoying for a player? Because I think you're touching on... Probably what I would say, too, is thematically, if it makes sense. If it's you're under pressure right now. You're in a room, you're trapped in a room and it's filling up with water. That kind of situation. Right. A timer... is just a visual representation of the imminent danger of an imaginary situation. May help players understand the gravity of this threat. So in that case, I would say totally go for a timer. What in your opinion would you say is a very poor use of a sand dial or even on your iPhone, just some type of timing system?
Definitely when players are trying to, I guess, maybe pre-initiative or maybe post-initiative, when they're trying to gather their thoughts a little bit or try and figure something out, don't, rush them. Let them come to their conclusions before, you get going into something. Because I know a lot with our personal campaign, you have an amazing arcs.
Oh,
and we
keep going.
Yeah.
We take more compliments
okay.
right now. You can keep going.
And we, sometimes we take a little bit of time to do it. We had one encounter with a toad on a bridge.
You have no problems with toads. No problems.
We had a toad on a bridge, and we had to give a password in order to cross. Yeah, we couldn't figure it out. Putting a timer in that kind of situation, I feel would kind of be poor because, you want your players to figure it out. You don't want them to have to, murder hobo it up and just slaughter everything. You don't want that to happen. You want your players, to use their minds a little bit and kind of solve some of your riddles or some of your puzzles you have. So putting a timer in that kind of situation, I think, would be a poor choice.
Yeah, timers in general are kind of a... That's a sticky situation, honestly, because the mechanics of the game, which, if you haven't noticed by now, this is not, we're not nitpicky on rules. That's not what this podcast is about.
If you got some homebrew stuff that works for you guys, rock out.
Yeah, do that thing, because a lot of these systems are made to where you just need your character sheet and dice, and right. then like a core rule book, or I've seen some players that's just they're familiar with the game, and then they're so not worried about rules that they just have a DM that's really familiar with the system, and then they just kind of go. He just starts talking, and then then he coaches them through, you need to roll this, you have this character sheet, do this thing. Rules as far as text goes, other than spells and stuff, they don't even care about that. Incorporating another physical element to that, I have found can be kind of clunky, exactly like you said, if it's not thematic. If it's not thematically appropriate, there's no place there. Players are already under enough pressure, especially, you mentioned riddles. Some players just don't. Some groups just hate riddles. They like puzzles, they like traps, but whenever it comes to we have to sit down and use our actual player brains, not character brains, player brains, and think about this riddle, they kind of see it as less immersive. They see it as sort of antagonistic, because it changes from its characters versus situations to players versus the DM's knowledge. And that's no fun. And then you add a timer on top of that, and I think you're just asking for people to get frustrated and to not want to be as involved in that encounter as they could be. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Consensus is for more YGP. We'd say, you can use you can use timers. Just make sure that it's appropriate and that it means something. It's not just It's not just like trivial.
Yeah, don't overdo it at first too. If you want to try it out in a couple situations, see how your players react to it. If they react well, maybe try and sprinkle it in here and there.
Yeah.
But definitely at first, give it a shot. If that's something you're interested in doing, just try it out.
You're never completely committed to doing anything, especially in a game where it's entirely comprised of make believe. It's not real. You're making it up. If you introduce a mechanic that's not working, it's not like, well, that's just how this world works and everyone hates it, but we just gotta,
We're stuck.
Everything you do, you have to do in 60-second increments by this dial that I have, because that's how the world works. You don't have to. I guess you can, but you need to not be playing this. You don't need to be role playing. It works. It needs to be thematic. It needs to be important. It needs to contribute something, not just add stress. Stress is good, but it's good whenever it's a tool, not just because you're bored and you want your players to do something. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, more YJP.
We all need more YJP.
We all need more YJP. Actually, I think I'm going to go get some more YJP.
Fantasy Kroger?
Yeah, Fantasy Kroger. Go down there and get some more YJP. Your little Reddit question, there's it's actually a tag connected to a whole 2-liter of YJP.
I need more of that.
And yeah, you just down it, man. You shotgun it.
In my system.
And you feel you have way more YJP that you can handle. But that YJP is just enough. It's just the kick that you needed to bolt out of that.
Twice the speed of a 2-legged horse.
A 2-legged Shetland pony. You bolt out of that cave. You get over the rickety bridge. You go past the bones. You go past the chest. You are out free into the beautiful Scorched Valley. What's that over the horizon? What is that? Do you see it? It's Butternut. It's Butternut.
She's come.
She's come. She's a magic. She's a phantasmal horse now. The ghostly form of Butternut rises over the horizon and comes to whisk you away to your abode to go answer more questions from role players. Thanks again for listening to the Dragon's Horde podcast.
If you want to submit any content or questions of your own, you can message us at thedragonshordecast@gmail.com or visit our Reddit page, The Dragon's Hordecast.
Or tweet at us at the Hordecast for a chance to star in a future adventure.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe and catch our podcast weekly on Tuesdays.
And make sure to rate us on iTunes so we can keep the adventure going.